We were founded in 2019, rolling out of the Australian Science, CSIRO is the Australian Science Agency, a partnership between CSIRO and our founding CEO, Nick Hazel. We launched, as I mentioned, with the Rebel Whopper, which was in partnership with Hungry Jack's, which is the Australian Burger King. And after that, we launched into retail and also food service, QSR. So the product has been, adopted well. V2, our aim is to be price parity and of equal taste to be able to win with the consumer. People, want to be able to go to the supermarket and look at the price of, say, beef mince and the price of V2 mince and not have to make a sustainable choice based on price. We've done this with different methods, primarily collaboration and agreements with co-manufacturers, so that we're able to then plug in to those existing supply chains and work together to be able to supply our end consumer. We, have also the methods that we use for our ingredients have, without going into too much detail and explaining all, but we've definitely had this at the forefront of our minds in the processing and manufacturing. And I think, we've all seen the reports recently that, I think there's going to need to be around 800 new facilities for ingredient processing for raw materials. And I think that, the spend will be up to something like 27 billion for that, to be able to support the growth of plant-based meat and to have the inputs available for the growth in appetite up to 2050. So whether, plant-based meat companies are using pea or soy or fava, the opportunity exists for all of us to be able to grow, to be able to support this protein demand that will happen as our population growth hits the 10 billion by 2050. Our ability to scale has been by working with partners. We see that, if we want to scale quickly, we work with our local co-manufacturers. We're able to turn on capability in the form where supply chains are already existing and plug into those supply chains. Then we're able to also look at, I think you mentioned consumer demand and how we can meet that if it's rapidly expanding. I think the opportunity to either be manufacturing locally, but to have these models that I refer to, model 1, 2, and 3 on company and country expansion, then we're able to work with local manufacturers as well with our ingredients that already have our IP in terms of our textured proteins, to then work with local manufacturers to supply international markets. For ingredient sourcing, soy is our primary ingredient in our plant-based meat product. We see that there's actually a huge opportunity for growth in Australia for domestic growing. And as mentioned before, we're seeing key findings that the ingredient and facility constraints into the future, by 2050, there'll need to be this huge investment for a lot of the supply chains. So up to $27 billion in investment for raw ingredient manufacturing. So it's almost like going upstream of plant-based meat will be another investment opportunity and another growth industry, because the rise of plant-based meat has meant that we need to have these raw ingredients. So we're very cognizant of our sourcing, as I mentioned, partnering with Australian farmers so that we're able to grow an industry where we can, extract our own soy locally and be able to then produce a lot of this demand internationally. How I tend to look at the system is we all saw the automotive sector move to electric vehicles. We all saw the oil and gas industry move to renewable energy. I think what's happening now is the meat and dairy industry is moving to a protein industry. So it's where you get your protein from versus how it was probably viewed historically. we see the opportunity for many more players to be in the market. Currently, there's a lot of brands. There's probably more saturation in some geographies than other. You know, in perhaps Europe and the US, there's a lot of brands. There's sometimes consumer confusion on where to purchase what and which ones are tasty. So we see maybe a shakeout will occur for some of the brands. And I think, you know, but there's enough room for a lot of people if they're good. So if you're line priced or have a trajectory to be line priced with meat and be tasty enough for the consumer, then, you know, the opportunity exists to be a winning brand.